Most people who go looking for answers on rice end up more confused after than before. One source tells you it's basically toxic, another tells you the whole thing is overblown, and both of them are technically using real data. The actual problem isn't the arsenic or the blood sugar concern on their own. It's that nobody has put the testing data, the cooking research, and the brand-specific numbers in the same place and given you a straight answer. That's what this does. 3 brands that consistently test high, 4 that don't, one cooking method that beats everything else, and a protocol you can use tonight. All of it grounded in the same testing rounds. Not cherry-picked to make a point either. You've probably already seen 2 videos about rice. One says your pantry is a carcinogen delivery system. The other says one weird trick will fix your blood sugar for free. Here's the thing, one of them is playing you for clicks, and neither one is telling you the whole story. A Consumer Reports investigation found measurable levels of inorganic arsenic in every sample of rice it tested, with more than 40% of products containing enough arsenic that eating 1 serving per day over time could raise the risk of cancer and type 2 diabetes. That's real. That's not nothing. But it's also true that billions of people have eaten rice as their primary staple for generations without a visible epidemic tied directly to it. Both of those things are simultaneously true, and most videos in this space pick one and run with it. This video does something different. We're going to look at what the actual testing data says, figure out which cooking method is best supported by research, merge that with the blood sugar side of the equation, and give you a single protocol you can use tonight. And then we'll name the specific brands, 3 to avoid, 4 that consistently test safer so you leave here with a straight answer instead of a longer list of things to worry about. Let's start with why rice is even a problem in the first place, because understanding that part makes everything else make sense. Rice absorbs arsenic from the soil more efficiently than almost any other crop. The reason is simple. Arsenic is water soluble, so it accumulates in rice, which is grown in flooded fields more than other cereals. When rice sits in standing water, it pulls whatever is dissolved in that water up through its roots, and if the soil underneath has arsenic in it, the rice is going to pick it up. That's not a manufacturing defect. It's just how the plant works. Now here's the part that a lot of people don't know, and it genuinely changes how you think about the geography of this problem. A significant portion of the arsenic in American-grown rice didn't come from rice farming at all. It came from cotton. For decades, farmers across the American South, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas used arsenic-based pesticides to control the boll weevil on cotton crops. 30,000 tons of that stuff went into the soil over the course of the 20th century. Then cotton farming moved on, and rice paddies moved in. The arsenic never left. So when you buy a bag of rice grown in the southern US, you're dealing with soil that's been carrying that chemical legacy for over 100 years. The rice didn't put it there. The cotton industry did. This is why growing region matters more than almost any other factor on the label. If this is the first time you're hearing where American rice's arsenic problem actually came from, let me know in the comments below. Arsenic levels varied across product types, and brown rice generally contained more inorganic arsenic than white rice of the same variety. But the bigger driver is geography. Southern US rice consistently tests at the higher end. California rice tests significantly lower because California's rice-growing land doesn't carry that same agricultural history, and certain imported varieties, basmati from India and Pakistan and genuine Thai jasmine, tend to test lower still. Basmati and sushi rice tended to have lower arsenic levels than other types. One more thing worth clearing up before we move on. Organic doesn't fix this. It seems like it should, because organic certification is supposed to mean cleaner, but organic certification governs what pesticides are applied to a crop during its current growing cycle. It says nothing about what's already in the soil from 50 years ago. A bag of organic brown rice grown in Arkansas is still grown in the same ground as the conventional version. The arsenic is naturally occurring in that soil at this point. The label doesn't change the dirt. So now you know what the problem actually is. The next question is what you can actually do about it before the rice hits your plate. There are 3 methods that get passed around online, and people argue about them constantly because nobody ever puts them side by side and gives a clear answer. Let's do that now. Method 1 is cooking rice like pasta using a large excess of water, 6 to 10 cups per cup of rice, boiling it, then draining everything off. This works. It reduces arsenic because you're throwing away a lot of the water the arsenic dissolved into. Estimates put the reduction somewhere around 40 to 60%, depending on the rice type, but you also lose a meaningful amount of water-soluble nutrients along with it. Method 2 is the overnight soak and drain. You soak the raw rice in water for several hours, drain it, then cook normally. This does remove some arsenic. Soaking helps, but it's the weakest of the 3 methods on its own, and it doesn't do much for the arsenic that's deeper in the grain. Method 3 is the one that actually has the strongest research behind it. Researchers at the University of Sheffield's Institute for Sustainable Food found that by using a home-friendly way of cooking rice, the parboiling with absorption method, most of the arsenic was removed while keeping most nutrients in the cooked rice. The method involves parboiling the rice in pre-boiled water for 5 minutes before draining and refreshing the water, then cooking it on a lower heat to absorb all the water. This method can reduce arsenic levels by over 50% in brown rice and 74% in white rice without losing micronutrients. That's the answer to the question everyone online is fighting about. Not the pasta method, not the overnight soak. Parboil and drain, then finish in fresh water. It beats the other 2 on arsenic reduction, and it doesn't strip the nutritional profile the way boiling in a giant pot of excess water does. The practical steps are straightforward. Rinse your rice first, bring a pot of water to a boil, add the rice, let it parboil for 5 minutes, then drain the whole thing completely. Add fresh water, just enough to finish cooking, and cook on low heat until the rice absorbs it. That's it. You can do this on a standard stovetop tonight. If the overnight soak is what you've been doing, drop a comment. I want to see how common that still is. Now here's where it gets genuinely interesting, because we're not done yet. Even after you've handled the arsenic side, there's a second issue with rice that's worth understanding, and there's a fix for it that most people have heard about but don't fully understand the mechanism behind. White rice has a high glycemic index. That means the starch in it gets broken down quickly in your small intestine, glucose enters your bloodstream fast, and your body has to pump out a lot of insulin to deal with it. Do that repeatedly over years, and you're putting sustained stress on your metabolic system. That's the blood sugar concern, and it's a legitimate one. But here's the thing about starch. Its structure isn't fixed. When you cook rice and then refrigerate it for 12 to 24 hours, the starch molecules rearrange themselves through a process called retrogradation. The structure changes in a way that makes the starch resistant to digestion. Your small intestine can't break it down the same way, so it passes through largely intact and reaches your colon instead. There, it acts as a prebiotic. It feeds the bacteria in your gut, which then produce short-chain fatty acids. One of the most important of those is butyrate, which is linked to reduced colon cancer risk and better insulin sensitivity over time. So refrigerating your cooked rice doesn't just lower how much starch gets absorbed, it actively feeds your gut bacteria and produces a compound with real downstream health benefits. And yes, you can reheat it. Studies show reheating after refrigeration can actually build more resistant starch, not less. The same mechanism works on pasta, potatoes, and bread. By the way, it's not unique to rice. So now we have 2 separate problems with 2 separate solutions, and they can be combined into one protocol. Here's what the full process looks like. Rinse your rice, parboil it for 5 minutes in boiling water, drain completely, add fresh water, finish cooking on low heat, then refrigerate the cooked rice for 12 to 24 hours before eating. That's it. One sequence. You're cutting arsenic by more than half, you're lowering the glycemic impact, and you're feeding your gut bacteria something useful. You can make a batch at the start of the week and work through it over several days. The refrigeration time just becomes part of your meal prep routine. 2 quick practical checks before we get to the brands, because these take about 10 seconds and they're worth doing. First, look at the bag. Does it name a specific growing region? California, India, Pakistan, Thailand, somewhere specific. If the label just says product of USA with no further detail, or if it's a bulk bin with no origin at all, that's a red flag. With no stated origin, you have no way to know whether you're buying from low arsenic California soil or high arsenic Cotton Belt soil. The bag is hiding the one piece of information that matters most. Second, smell it. Fresh rice smells like almost nothing. Maybe faintly starchy, maybe faintly grassy, but essentially neutral. If you open a bag and get a sharp, oily, or stale smell, that grain is old and likely going rancid. Old grain is a quality problem on top of everything else, and it's easy to catch. Now, the brands. This is the part you came for, so let's be direct about it. 3 brands to avoid. First, Mahatma. A proposed class action lawsuit claims that Riviana Foods has failed to warn consumers that its Mahatma brown whole grain rice contains arsenic and cadmium, with independent testing revealing 317 parts per billion of arsenic in the product. Consumer Reports' 2026 testing also found that Mahatma Jasmine Brown Thai fragrant whole grain rice contained 155 parts per billion of inorganic arsenic, the highest level among the brown rice samples tested. Ben's Original, BJ's, Carolina, Goya, Iberia, Mahatma, Near East, Rice Aroni, Roland, and Target did not respond to Consumer Reports' request for comment. That silence, combined with 2 separate sets of testing data pointing in the same direction, is a meaningful signal. This is a brand to put back on the shelf. Second, Ben's Original. Ben's Original long grain and wild rice seasoned side dish had higher levels of inorganic arsenic than the other 5 boxed products tested. At 167 parts per billion, the single highest result of all 52 products in the Consumer Reports 2026 investigation. There's also a separate federal class action lawsuit filed in 2025 over heavy metals in Amazon-sold rice products that names the brand. The boxed seasoned rice products are a particular concern because Consumer Reports recommends avoiding boxed rice or rice side dishes, as these products were found to have higher levels of lead due to the inclusion of pre-made spice mixes. You're not just getting the rice's arsenic load, you're getting whatever's in the seasoning packet on top of it. Third, generic and unbranded rice with no stated growing origin. Bulk bins, discount storehouse brands, anything where the bag won't tell you where the grain was grown. Geographic origin serves as the primary safety indicator across every major round of independent testing, and if that information isn't on the label, there's simply no way to know whether you're buying grain from a low-risk region or the highest arsenic soil in the country. The price savings aren't worth the uncertainty. Now, the 4 that consistently test safer. First, California-grown rice, and the clearest example here is Lundberg Family Farms. While brand wasn't necessarily correlated with high levels of arsenic across the board, Lundberg consistently had some of the lowest levels of arsenic in its rice products. Lundberg said it tests its rice annually using a third-party laboratory and publishes the results. That transparency is meaningful. It's not just a marketing claim, it's verifiable data that gets updated every year. If you want to check their numbers yourself, they post them publicly. Second, basmati rice from India or Pakistan. This has been one of the most consistent findings across multiple Consumer Reports investigations going back to 2014 and confirmed again in 2026. Royal Basmati rice, for example, tested at just 32 parts per billion, well under the FDA's 100 parts per billion infant cereal limit, which is currently the only formal benchmark that exists. The combination of growing region and grain variety keeps basmati at the lower end of the spectrum reliably. Third, genuine Thai jasmine rice. This consistently tests lower than rice grown in the southern US across independent testing. The keyword there is genuine, single origin Thai jasmine, not a cheap basmati jasmine blend that uses filler grain from a different region. If the bag says jasmine but doesn't state Thailand as the country of origin, you don't actually know what you're getting. Check the label. Fourth, Lotus Foods. Lotus Foods organic brown basmati rice had the lowest arsenic level of the brown rice samples tested by Consumer Reports in 2026 at 53 parts per billion. The reason their numbers are consistently low comes down to how the rice is grown. Lotus Foods sources from farms using the system of rice intensification, a method that uses alternating wet and dry field cycles instead of continuous flooding. Less standing water means less arsenic uptake at the root level, and like Lundberg, the company tests for heavy metals and publishes its results using a third-party laboratory. One honest note before we close: brand formulations and sourcing can change, litigation status can change, and no single round of testing is the final word on any brand forever. Consumer Reports itself cautions that its findings were a spot check of the market and should not be used to draw definitive conclusions about specific brands. Use this as a directional guide, not a permanent verdict. The principles, growing region, transparent testing, variety type, those are stable. Apply them when you're standing in the aisle and the specific brand you're looking at isn't on this list. So here's where we land. The arsenic concern is real and it's measured. The fear videos aren't making it up, but it's also a manageable risk, not a reason to throw out everything in your pantry and never eat rice again. The blood sugar concern is real too, and it turns out the fix for it stacks neatly on top of the fix for contamination. Rinse, parboil, and drain. Cook in fresh water. Refrigerate. Reheat. That's the protocol. It costs you about 5 extra minutes and 1 extra pot of water. On the brand side, the pattern is consistent across every major round of testing. Origin matters more than brand name. Transparency about testing is a meaningful signal of quality, and certain varieties, basmati, California grown, genuine Thai jasmine, carry a structural advantage that has nothing to do with marketing. You walked in here with 2 competing narratives and a bag of rice you weren't sure about. You're walking out with a method, a short list, and a clear way to think about any rice you pick up from here on out. No supplement, no course, no affiliate link, just the protocol. If you've heard any of these cooking methods before, the parboil and drain, the pasta method, the overnight soak, the refrigerate and reheat, drop a comment, and tell me which one you were already doing. I'm genuinely curious which of these has gotten the most traction, and your answers help shape what we cover next. If this gave you something useful, subscribing means you'll see it when we go deeper on related topics, because there's more to cover in this space than one video can hold.